Hey, everybody, we're back for another recording as we're talking about some of the issues around the future of work. And we've been doing this, you might have, if you're following along, we've been doing this every week. Some of them have been Wayne, some of them have been me, some of us have been both. And this one, as you can see, is both. You see Wayne Turmel there with me. I'm Kevin Eichenberry. And the question is, or the topic for our short conversation today is, the future of work questions that we aren't addressing. And as Wayne said a minute ago, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about and thinking about the future of work. So when we use the word we, we're really talking about sort of the royal we in organizations and societally. What are the things that really need to be addressed that we haven't been addressing? And so that's what we thought we'd talk about. And so the first one, Wayne, I'll let you start with. We're getting a lot of people talking to us about wanting the prescription. So talk about this issue.
Well, this makes sense, right? We're heading into, we have been for 18 months in uncharted waters. And people have been paddling and dog paddling and treading water. And, some are making progress and some are barely keeping afloat. And as we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, people are looking for, tell us what to do. They're looking for a prescription. And while we can do that to some degree, I mean, you can say things like continue to use webcams and, make sure that you are including your remote people in decisions. And, we can get fairly prescriptive about that stuff. The problem is that organization A is going to look very different from organization B. And when people say, tell us how we should put our hybrid team together, or what rules should we have for making this a success, the correct answer, and the one that drives people crazy, is it depends. And that's not what people are looking for right now.
Well, that's the perfect consulting answer anytime, I suppose, is it depends. But what I would say is that, when we are in a situation like this, we're teaching a webinar, we're doing something like this, people want that prescription, and we have to be more general because there isn't one single. One of the complexities of this whole thing is there's not a single right answer. It's like hybrid, we could list 6, 8, 10 different versions of what hybrid will be. And so if we had the chance to work with your organization to understand the nuances, we could probably help you get far more prescriptive, but we can't do that from the start. And I don't think anyone else can. And we understand why people are wanting it. And yet it's not really quite what we think is even the best. The right answer is for you to have those general guidelines and start moving in that direction. And then if you want help, whether it's from us or from someone else, from other people in your business area or whatever, that's where you'd want to go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because I've spoken to 2 organizations who are in the exact same industry, in the exact same kind of situation. And one is, yes, we're going back to a totally hybrid model. And the other one is, we're going to stay mostly remote and people are going to get together when they get together. Well, those are 2 entirely different rules of engagement.
Yeah. And we are not able today to say which one's right or wrong. What will be right or wrong is what works for your organization. We get asked all the time questions like, we've been doing this. Is that a good idea? And my answer always is it working?
Yeah.
Is it working, but are there unintended consequences? If it's working, keep doing it. Are there other consequences that are happening you weren't thinking about it? Then maybe you don't do it. That's,
when in doubt, ask the Dr. Phil question. How's that working for you?
Exactly. Another one of the things, go ahead. You want to?
Well, another thing that we're hearing a lot is people are asking us about corporate culture and the way that they're asking the question, while you have to ask questions about your culture and you want to create the kind of company that you want to work in, they're usually asking the wrong question. And the question they're asking is, how do we get back to the way things were before?
Well, they have what I call going on in their head, the good old day syndrome, which is the longer we go from something we used to have, the better we think it was. So everyone seems to think if we could just get back to the way it was in January of 2020, life would be awesome. But in January of 2020, people were talking to us every day about all the problems they had in their organizations. So like we're going back there. Number one, is that really where you want to go back to? That's the first thing. Second thing is you can't ever go back there. and I'm not saying you can't bring everyone back to the office. Maybe that is your right answer, or maybe that's what you'll choose to do. But to think that by doing that, you will have the culture you used to have is just straight out folly, right? So, Wayne, here's what I've been telling people. There are 3 cultures to think about. Number one, the one you used to have. And we should look at it and say, hey, there's some things we loved about it, maybe some things that weren't perfect about it. There's the culture we've had during the pandemic. And then there's the culture we're going to have in the future. And the third one is to come, which means that we can intentionally create it. And we can create it knowing that we have the other 2 to work from. And I think that's the real key. If we think we're going to go back, you can't, because everyone's lived in a different world for 18 months.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because this time when you can plan and think and stuff, people aren't looking at this current thing as the opportunity that it is. A lot of people, like, we're in a holding pattern. We're waiting. We can't make a decision, right? It's out of our hands because the state is giving us this mandate, that mandate. But that's the point, is because you can't start taking off, right? The gun hasn't fired yet to begin the race. This is exactly the time when you can take that lull, that time when you're not doing anything, quote unquote, and actually think and plan and make some decisions while you have time to think about it. Because most of us are too busy doing it to stop and think about it. Right now, you're not doing it. So take the time.
Everyone was saying, we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out. Of course, still like 40% of companies haven't announced or decided what they're going to do. But let's just say organizations that were going to go, Labor Day, we're going, whatever. And now we got organizations that were that, and now it's October, or now it's September, or now it's November, or now it's January, or now it's February, whatever. And so we rushed to get there. And now we're all worried about why we're waiting. To your point, use that time to think about how do we upskill our folks? How do we prepare our leaders? How do we continue to communicate? You and I both been having a lot of conversation. The other piece of this is employees are wanting to know what's going on. And I just heard yesterday from a client that they did a survey, or they were talking about a survey where employees said, tell me what's happening about the future. We'd like some communication about this every day. And lots of leaders are like waiting till they got all the answers. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing, right? This is all about trust, and it's all about creating an environment where people feel confident that they're going to have a job, that that these things are going to happen. The problem is that when you wait until you have all the answers, right? 2 things happen. One is you can be waiting an awful long time, right? Which creates an awful lot of ambiguity, and people don't deal with that very well. The second thing that happens is the minute you think you have something, you pounce on it and announce it. And then when things don't turn out exactly like you thought it was, or things change, now it's you lied to us.
When we wait to make a big announcement, then people assume that, well, it's all figured out. If we just keep talking about it along the way, hey, we don't have all the answers yet. Here's what we're working on. Here's when we think we'll have some information. Asking people what they think. All of those things make every new piece of information less of a big deal and less of a risk of it being, well, you lied to us, right? Because if you keep waiting to give us the answers and then it changes, then it feels like a gotcha. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I keep coming back, and if anybody told me that I would be quoting Donald Rumsfeld, I would think they're insane. But he actually said something once that got a lot of heat at the time, but made perfect sense when he was talking about the situation in Iraq. He said there's things we know, there's things we think we know, there are things we don't know, and there are things we don't know that we don't know. And if you just act as if you know those answers, you are going to get out over your skis and you're going to get into trouble. Yeah. And people are okay with, here's what we know right now, and here are the variables, a lot of if then, yeah. Right? If we're allowed to go back, if we reach certain goal posts, whatever that is. People are okay with some degree of ambiguity. What they don't like is radio silence.
Absolutely. And because when there's silence, people will make it up. And that's
they fill in the blanks.
Right.
And so, nobody makes up the best case scenario.
No, there's no such thing as positive gossip. And here's how gossip is like a mushroom, everybody. It grows in the dark. So if we keep giving people some data, start showing a little light, here's even we don't know yet, here's what we're thinking. Any of that is going to help. Hey, if you found this useful, if you found us mildly entertaining, if you thought we had useful things to say, you are going to want to join us on September the 30th. You want to go to this link right here, remoteleadershipinstitute.com/livecast. Wayne and I are going to be joined by some guests. We're going to be on another platform talking about all things future of work. We're going to sort of culminate all we've been doing on our various blogs and in various other ways. We're going to talk about what we're learning, what we know. We're going to answer your questions. It's going to be live. It's going to be engaging. We're going to have guests with us. You're going to want to be there. remoteleadershipinstitute.com/livecast. Invite others in your organization who are thinking about, worried about, trying to figure out this future of work stuff. We'll join you there, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.